this 5-day open-ended play coaching week that I am running. So this is a week that I've just put on to celebrate, I guess, the reopening of my parenting membership, the Authentic Learning Experience Tale. So you're going to hear so much more about it at the end of the week. But I'm just so excited to finally do this again, this live thing again, because it's been like, I don't know, almost more than a year now since I've done this kind of live teaching, and I really enjoy it. I just love, sharing everything that I know. I love working with parents. And so, yes, let's go straight in. All right. Let me see. How am I going to remove? Oh, there we go. I'm not the best at tech. All right, so let's have a quick overview of what we are going to be covering over the next 5 days. Okay, so today is day 1. Tonight is day 1. We are just going to start simple, start easy. We're just going to do an introduction to open-ended play. And then tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the play environment. Day 3, on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about our role as the adult. What on earth do we do, right, to encourage open-ended play, to play with our kids? Like, what is our role? Day 4, when play goes wrong. Now, I actually put this here because there's always so much that happens during play, and we need to troubleshoot, and we are going to do that on day 4. And finally, day 5, which is probably my most excited part of open-ended play, is to find the magic of play. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so tonight, introduction to open-ended play. So what we'll be covering today, number 1, what really is open-ended play? Because open-ended play these days is really a buzzword, right? It's a buzzword in the industry, it's a buzzword on social media, it's a buzzword like literally every single way. With all these amazing toy shops just popping up one after the other, open-ended play has just become such an overused word. And I love the word, don't get me wrong, but the thing that really irks me sometimes is when people just talk about open-ended play as if it's just all about the toys, and it is not. And this is what I want to show you guys over the course of this week, what open-ended play really is. Okay, and then number 2, we're going to be talking about why, right? Because if you don't have a why, then why would you even do it in the first place, right? So knowing our why is so important. Number 3, the true value. So not just why, but we're going to go like much deeper than that, the true value of open-ended play that not a lot of people know. And then number 4, we're going to be talking about the different stages of open-ended play. And number 5, if there's time, and I hope there'll be time, I will take some questions at the end. Okay? All right. Now, before we go in, I like to do quizzes because I'm a teacher, right? I like to quiz. Okay, so have a look at this picture and answer in the comments. Okay, let me know, what do you think? Is this open-ended play? So before you answer, right, giving you a little bit of context, this is my my firstborn when she was, I think, 11 months. She is sitting there with 2 wooden spoons and some wooden packs or plastic packs, clothes packs. Okay, tell me in the comments, in the chat, if this is open-ended play. Yes, 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 yes. All right, awesome. You guys nailed it. Okay, so we're starting very simple. Okay, next one. Is this open-ended play? Second quiz question. Is this open-ended play? So this is a board game. This is a board game, and I'm not sure if you can see on the left, but this board game is called Tiny Towns. And actually, this picture is really, really fresh. It's literally taken from today, right? My brother took a picture of this earlier. He sent it to me. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to use it as part of my coaching tonight. And so I just added in here at the last minute. Yes, 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 yes. Amazing. Okay, so cool, so cool. Nazla, yes, it can be used as loose parts. I love your thinking, Nazla. Amazing, so good. Now, the reason why I put it here, right, because board games, right, are often thought of as closed-ended toys. So how can closed-ended toys then be considered open-ended play? But in this case, yes, right? If you actually look at the box alone, right, just looking at the cover of the box, this game, right, it belongs to my brother. The age recommendation for this board game is actually 14 years old, right? And the picture on the right was the picture that my brother took of my 6 and my 3 older girls playing this together, right? So they are obviously, this board game is for 14 years olds, right? For adults, for teenagers. But here are my three big girls playing with this board game in their own way. Okay, because my brother, we're staying with my parents now, and my brother is staying there too. And he is an avid collector of board games. He literally has like stacks and stacks and stacks of board games in his room. And from time to time, he just takes out like a couple of boxes, and he bless him, he's so kind. He lets my girls go through his precious board games to just go through all these like different things, right? Loose parts, right? As what Nazla has said, to actually just come up with whatever they want. And here you can see my girls have there's this, I think, this green board that came along with all these different things, right? Like, I think they're houses or something like that. And they have actually, just put color sorted, matched the different pieces as well. And there's literally one-to-one correspondence there as well. So guys, there is so much potential when it comes to open-ended play. And the thing about open-ended play that I really want you guys to get is that open-ended play, more than the type of toys that you have, more than the materials that you have, is really the mindset. And that is what we're going to be exploring this 5 weeks, right? Helping you to shift your mindset when it comes to thinking about different things related to open-ended play. And so tonight, if you look at your workbook, right, it's going to be all about shifting your mindset to do with open-ended play, right? What exactly it is. Amazing, guys. Okay. Now, so this picture here, okay, is this open-ended play? Is this open-ended play? Now, this is a picture, a stereotypical picture of open-ended play, I would say. And the reason why I put it at the end of my quiz and not at the start, right, is because I guess I really wanted you guys to explore and open up your minds as to what open-ended play really looks like. Because when you ask anybody, right, what does open-ended play look like, the first thing that parents usually think of, right, is all these wonderful, beautiful images of, children just sitting there playing wonderfully, sitting down usually for maybe hours, I don't know, playing with all these beautiful wooden, always has to be wooden apparently, open-ended toys. And that could not be further from the truth, right? But the reason why I put it here is also because for those of you who your child is not playing like this yet, I want to let you know that it is possible, and I'm going to show you how, okay? So firstly, I want you to open up your mind to see that open-ended play is not just this picture. But if you are sitting here and thinking to yourself like, oh, wow, but I would really like my child to engage in this kind of creative open-ended play, hang on tight, guys. Stay with me throughout this week, and I'm going to show you how, okay? All right. Okay. So what is open-ended play? Open-ended play is any type of play that is unstructured. It has no specific goal, no specific end result. There's no right or wrong. You literally can play in any way that you want, right? Your child can play any way you want. It's child-led, though it can be adult facilitated, and we'll talk about the difference later I think on day 3 when we talk about the role of the adult. And open-ended play is really centered around the process rather than the product or outcome. So what does it look like? It's not, like I mentioned earlier already, it's not a type of play that happens because of the type of toys that you have now. It is a philosophy of looking at play and helping your child to see the possibilities for play in the environment. Now, the reason why the word environment was chosen here is because, again, I want to emphasize it's not about the toys. It's literally you can pick up anything in your environment, and we want to help your child see that anything in the environment can be used for play, for open-ended play, right? I'm just looking at what I've got here in my environment. I've got a hair tie here, right? This can be used as open-ended play. I'm telling you, this is a hair tie. I cannot tell you how many times my girls have just used, we have a billion ties in our house because I have 4 girls, right? And my girls are always using hair ties to tie different things, to just do lots of different things, to secure different things for all their imaginative play. It's amazing. I've got a bottle of water here in case I get thirsty. Guys, my girls have played with bottles of water when we are in a restaurant waiting, right? They with salt and pepper shakers, they play with all these. When we are in the shower, and all the shampoo and the soap solution in the shower, they are using them as people and talking to each other as well, right? And so with Open Ended Play, what it is really to help our children and to help ourselves see that anything in our environment can be used for play. Okay. Wow. Let me just have a look at your comments, guys. Keep your comments going, okay? When I might not be able to look at comments now, but I will tell you that at the end of this call, when I'm still on my high, I'm just going to go look through all of your comments and be so excited about all the different reflections and comments that you are putting here. Okay, let's keep going. So Open Ended Play can look like a billion different types of play, right? All the different categories: pretend play, symbolic play, imaginative play, narrative play, you know, when they tell stories, loose parts play, and loose parts can be anything, right? And not just wooden. Sensory play, messy play, block play, object play, all types of play. Any type of play can be open-ended if it is unstructured, if there is no end goal in mind, no objective in mind, and if we follow the child. Okay, so now let's move on and talk about the benefits of open-ended play. So why do we want our children to engage in open-ended play? I like to call this philosophy DICE, right? The benefits of open-ended play is because our children get to DICE. And so what does DICE represent? DICE stands for discover, imagine, create, and explore. Okay, let's look at each of the categories in detail. Right, so what do they discover when they're playing? They discover their strengths, what they're good at, right? They realize that, oh, I'm really good at building. Oh, I'm really good at connecting. Oh, I'm really good at problem solving. Oh, I'm really good at figuring things out. I'm really good at, you know, drawing, right? I'm really good at writing. I'm really good at, what am I really good at? We want to help our children to discover that, right? Their strengths. And we want them to discover their interests as well. What are they passionate about? Now, I'm going to give one example here, right, of cars, right? Because especially I don't have boys, I don't have children who loves cars, right? But I know a lot of my parents that I talk to who have boys, they often have boys who love cars, right? They love cars, right? And there are so many different parents who tell me that, oh, Jules, you know, my child loves cars. Now, the question I want to pose back to those parents, right, is what about the cars does your child enjoy in? Because being interested in cars is just too broad an interest, right? What exactly about the car is your child interested in? That is my challenge to you, especially if you are listening here and you've got a child who is interested in cars, okay? Because I can tell you 10 children who are interested in cars will be interested in the cars for various reasons. Some of them might be interested in the mechanics of it. Some of them might be interested in the look of it. Some of it might be interested in the fact that cars have wheels. Some might be interested in the fact that, oh, you know, it can go really fast, or because, you know, it's transport and it's not just cars, but I'm interested in anything that has wheels, right? Trains and all the bicycles, everything, right? Just thinking that your child is interested in cars, right? And then parents go, oh, my child is interested in cars. Let me just, you know, set up this car activity for him. He's going to love it. And they set up a car activity and they realize that their child is not interested in it because, again, it is so broad. We need to zoom in. We need to observe to find out what exactly about cars, what not just cars, what exactly about blocks, what exactly about dolls, what exactly about all these different things that our children are interested in, are they interested in? Okay. So yes, and we want them to discover their identity. Who are they? Who are they? Right? Their community, the world around them. How do they play a part in the bigger world around them? STEM concepts as well. And STEM refers to science, technology, engineering, and math. So all these are really, really sciencey and math and all these academic concepts which we want our children to discover. Isn't that right? My boy loves excavators. He loves the wheels. There you go, Mei. Jay loves what vehicles can do. Ria, some can race, some can ferry, some can build. Look at that. There is so much diversity already from what those of you who are here talking about your children who loves cars, right? Every child is different. Okay, next I. we want our children to imagine as well. And I feel like this is something that is not talked about, not celebrated enough. Imagination, the power of an imagination, right? Rich imagination. And so, like, we want our children to be able to tell stories. We want them to be able to, think about different worlds and creations and possibilities and role play, right? Taking on different roles, different pretend play as well. So this is the power of imagination. And then C stands for the ability to create, right? Again, you could create stories, but you could create actual structures as well. 2D structures, 3D structures, different things, play props, especially for those of your kids who are, a bit more artistic and creative, who love to just create things in the art area. If you've got an art area, creating is such a powerful skill that we want our children to develop as well. And finally, explore, right? Why do we want our children to explore? Because in their playing, they're exploring language, they're playing with language, they're communicating, they're exploring how is it to, negotiate when things don't go their way, right? I know so many of you here would have siblings as well, right? Give me a yes if you've got siblings, right? I know I have 4 kids. I know most of you here will have 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids. And the biggest thing for parents when it comes to siblings is what? Fighting, right? And that's the value of play, because in play, our children explore how to navigate difficult social situations. And that's the best place to explore all these social situations as well, because that's the safest environment for children to explore social situations with their siblings fighting. So if you've got kids who are fighting, please tell yourself that it is fine. My kids are learning. It is valuable. Fighting is valuable, yes, okay? Unless they are hurting each other, then we want to put a stop to it. But if they are, just verbally fighting or even screaming, that's okay. It's hard as parents to hear that. It triggers us, but I want to let you guys know that you can just take a breath and know that there's nothing wrong with your kids. They are completely fine. They are learning and they're getting somewhere with all that fighting, okay? You might think that my girls don't fight, but honestly, I have counted. There was one day recently that I counted the number of times they fought, or rather they had like arguments. It was about 37 in one day. So I wonder how many of you can beat me here, right? Try and count how many times your kids fight in a day. In fact, we should all do that as a challenge tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow, just try and count how many times and let's see who wins, okay? All right, I want you guys to see that this is something good. Don't feel like, oh my goodness, my kids are fighting. Oh no, what am I doing wrong? Why is my child not playing nicely with her sister, his brother and all that? It is normal. That's how children learn, okay? All right. So when our children dies during play, they learn, as I talked about, they learn and develop many skills that will help and enhance their learning in future. So now we're going a little bit deeper already, right? We talked about the importance of discovery, imagination, creating and exploring, and why, right? Everything that we do, we want to go a little bit deeper and ask ourselves more. Why? So why is it important to dice, right? Because it helps our children to develop the whole child, right? Not just the academic skills, but we help our children to develop their physical skills, their physicality, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, balance, hand-eye coordination, right? For your children who cannot sit still, who cannot move, guess what? The more they're moving, the more they're developing their gross motor skills, and the better their gross motor skills, the better their fine motor skills will be eventually, and the better they'll be at later things like writing. Okay, so they're all connected to each other. And then what else? Physical skills, social, emotional, we talked about that already. Academic skills, we talked about that as well. And cognitive skills, right? Cognitive, which is thinking, right? The different types of thinking. And it's not just one type of thinking. It's not just, being able to do their literacy, their math, their science and all that, but being able to think creatively, critically, divergently, abstractly, right? The ability to see like, oh, a water bottle can become a person, a big person, right? Because guess what, guys? If your child can see that this water bottle has the potential to become anything, right? Guess what? They are setting the foundation for doing math later on, doing algebra, right? X equals to 2, Y equals to 4, right? If they can see that they are setting their foundation up for doing much more higher level thinking skills later on, like algebra, okay? So guys, when you see your kids playing and you see that, their ability to think critically, to think creatively, to imagine, right? That a water bottle can be anything, that a hair tie can be anything. Tell yourself that, oh my goodness, my kids, they have setting foundation for higher order math skills later on. Okay, now let's go even deeper, right? More benefits of open-ended play here. Because I know in all my conversations with parents are often telling me, Jules, play is so good, right? As you said, but what about the learning, right? What about the academics, right? I know play is valuable, but what if my child can't read? What if my child can't write? What if my child can't know their numbers, right? And so I have these three pictures of trees, here, right? Representing each of the major academic skills that we as parents often want our kids to pick up, right? So the ability to read, the ability to write, and the ability to know their numbers. So imagine all these trees, all these trees are the skills that you want your child to develop, right? And all this beautiful blooming green tree above the surface, right? But before this tree actually comes into fruition, right? What is happening? So much is happening down below. If you look at the three pictures, right? All those roots growing deep, growing wide underneath the surface. Years before you even see the tree sprout the first bud, right? There is already so much going on underneath the surface, things that nobody sees, nobody knows, right? But it does not mean that nothing is happening, right? If you look at the ability to read, ability to write, the ability to know their numbers, right? All these different things before they need to, let me just look at the ability to write, okay? Before they are able to write, pick up a pen to write, they need to develop their hand strength. They need to develop their finger strength. They need to be able to isolate their fingers. What is isolate their fingers? The ability to do this. Because, as a baby, they wouldn't be able to isolate their fingers. And that's why things like finger rhymes, finger rhymes are so important and so valuable, because we think that things like finger rhymes are just for kids to be entertained, for babies to be entertained. But no, for toddlers, right? When they do 1 2 3 4 5, once I call them fish alive, they are practicing their finger isolation skills. There are all these different things that we don't know. And the thing is, the first step to helping our children is to educate ourselves, right? Because once we have the knowledge, then right, we don't know what we don't know, right? I always say that. And so once your eyes are open to the all these roots below the surface skills that our children need to learn, that's when you will truly be able to see the value of play for what it really is. Okay? All right. So cool, so cool. Yvonne, love the tree analogy. Yes, I came up with this analogy like a few years back, and I always talk about that. The members inside of my community know, because I talk to it like to death, right? I talk about it over and over and over again. I give all these different examples as well, because it's so true, right? Okay, so with this, I want you guys to remember this, okay? With open-ended play, you are playing the long game. Okay, with this slide, I hope that I've made my point clear. I was actually going to, make the O like in a few different lines just to make my case even more, but I think one line I can make my case really well already. Okay, because with so many play Instagram accounts that I see on Pinterest, on Instagram, all that, right? Giving our children play activity ideas, that is not the long game, right? That is just, entertaining your child for 5 minutes, entertaining your child for just an hour if you're lucky, which is impossible, right? One activity to engage your child for an hour. But every play activity, every time you research and Google something to entertain your child for just one more session, one more play session, you are just thinking in the short term, right? But with open-ended play, sometimes you don't see the benefits for a really, 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 really long time, right? But we want to remember that when you invest in helping your child learn how to engage in open-ended play, you are playing the long game, okay? All right, guys? Okay. So I'm so glad I just saw Xuaning's question. How can I encourage my boy who is 10 months old to start open-ended play? And I think just now, there was another question as well about when can you start open-ended play? See, I know what you're thinking. When can you start open-ended play? Come on, guys. This is a quiz. This is a quiz. Facebook user. Okay, I don't know who this Facebook user is, but you are speaking my language because you are talking in capital letters. And when I get excited, I talk in capital letters as well. So I love that you have said, I am excited about that long game. High five, sister. Okay. Yes, anytime since birth, anytime from babies. So guys, you guys are like A+++ students. I am so proud of all of you. Yes, from birth. The answer. Open-ended play, you can begin with your child from birth, but there's a caveat, right? There is a caveat for your child to be able to engage in open-ended play from birth. The caveat is you need to manage your expectation because open-ended play is a developmental process. Now, what does developmental process mean? It means that there are different stages when it comes to your child's ability, as this is the part of nature. This is where nature comes into play, right? Your child, if your child is a baby, right? Just going back to that picture, right? You know, when my child was a baby, I put all those silks over there. There is no way she's going to be, waving the silks around, right? Her hand might just accidentally brush it at that point. I think she was like 2 months or 3 months old at that time. I can't remember now, because this is not my current baby. This was one of my babies, one of my babies. And let's just talk about the silks in this picture, right? I'm not going to expect her to pick up the silks and wave it around at that point in time because she is not developmentally ready. Her body is not ready for it. Her cognitive skills is not ready for it, right? I'm not going to expect her to, pretend that the blue scarf, the blue silk is going to be an ocean and a river, right? I'm not going to expect that, right? Because play is a developmental process. So as long as we manage our expectation, right, our children can engage in open-ended play from birth. Okay. So let's talk about the different developmental stages. Okay. So let's talk about concentration span, right? Because a lot of parents often tell me, "Oh, Jules, my child can sit still for even 5 minutes." Right. And then when I ask them a little bit more, like, how old is your child? They tell me their child is 2 years old. Right. So a 2-year-old, right? A child's focus span is correlated with their age. So here is a rough estimate only, okay? 0 to 1-year-old, their estimated concentration span is 2 minutes. 2 to 3-year-olds, you might expect 4 minutes. 5 to 6-year-olds, 9 minutes. Now, there is a spectrum, obviously, right? This is to play, even with sleep as well. Children who can sleep, right? I've got a baby right now, and my baby, obviously, she's coming to 3 months old now. She is not sleeping through the night yet. Am I worried? No. When I hear about parents whose kids sleep at 6 weeks old, am I worried? No. Because even though there is a rough estimate, there's a rough guideline, every child is different. We need to remember that. Okay, so don't take these guidelines as gold and feel like, oh my goodness, if my child is 5 years old and my child cannot sit for 9 minutes and can only sit for 4 minutes, my child is not where he or she should be. Okay, so concentration span when it comes to their ability to focus is an average of 2 to 5 minutes per age of child. All right. Yes, Cornelia said, I think it's important to have knowledge so we can manage expectation. And that's why I want to equip you guys here with knowledge now. Okay, so for concentration span, their ability to focus is an average of 2 to 5 minutes per age of child. Okay, and then now let's come to more developmental stages of open-ended play. Okay, now guys, this is just a brief snapshot, okay? And I don't want you guys to look at this and go, oh my goodness, what is all this? What is all that? Okay, this is not a test. I don't expect you to remember all of this. I'm just putting all of this here in a table just to show you that there is a process. There is a developmental process again, okay? So, on the left side, right, it's a developmental process with children's ability to think, is their cognitive development. And so this is just a theory by Piaget, which is one of the amazing people, right? That we learned about as early childhood educators way back in when I was learning. Okay, and so there are 4 different types of developmental stages: the functional stage, the constructive stage, the symbolic stage, the game stage, where they can come up with their own rules for their own games, right? So the functional stage is the stage where, children begin to just explore what can this thing do. So for instance, if a child has a block, right? A baby would look at the block and maybe bang it. The baby might mouth the block. The baby might, if there's 2 blocks together, the baby might bang 2 blocks together. The baby might throw the block. The baby might, I don't know, lick the block. All different kinds of things, because this is the stage where a child is just engaging with the functions of what that material or that toy can do. So at this stage, you are not going to expect your baby to start stacking blocks, to build an amazing castle. Am I right? So we need to know what are the different stages, right, of play, so that we can manage our expectations. For block play, for instance, right, I don't have time to go into detail about all this, but I ran a block play workshop once, and I taught about the 7 stages of block play, right? Like, who knows, right, that there is a 7 stage of block play. And this is not in my slide. I just going to quickly give this tip to you. But a lot of parents often ask me when it comes to block play, because they see on Instagram my girls loving block play, and they often ask me, Jules, my girls cannot play with not just my girls, my child cannot play with blocks, right? Every time I ask my child, what do you want to build? What can you build? What can you make? My child looks at me blankly, and my child says, I don't know, right? And my answer to parents who ask, what can I get my child to build, is you are getting your child to focus on the goal, on the end product. Whereas children in the initial stages of play, they are not concerned with what they want to make. They are only focused on, what can this block do? Can I bang it? Can I crush it? Can I press it? Can I throw it? That's all they are concerned with. And then when they move on to the second stage and the third stage, they might be, experimenting with stacking, with making bridges and closures. So those are the 7 different stages. It is only when they reach the 7th stage of block play, that's when they are able to actually think in their head, come up with an idea of what they want to build, and then start to build, right? And so if you've got a 1-year-old, or not even 1 year, okay, sorry. If you've got a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, and you sit down, wanting to play with your child, and you ask your child, what do you want to build today? What do you want to make today, right? I often say, this is like, when you have just met someone on the first date, right? And you say, shall we get married? Like, if I went on a first date with my husband and he said that to me, I would be freaked out. I would run away and I'll never answer any of his messages again, right? And so this is the same with play as well, with different stages of play. We need to understand where our child is at so that we can manage our expectations, and this will affect the things that we say as well to our kids, and this will eventually affect their play, right? Don't worry if this still seems so much crazy to you. We will unpack this a little bit more over the next couple of days, right? But here, with all these different stages here, it's not for you to, be overwhelmed with all these different things, like what do they mean? The only thing I want you to remember or to get from this slide is to understand that there is a developmental process when it comes to play. Okay, and so if your child is not able to do certain things yet, it's not because he is behind. It's not because he cannot do it and he will never do it. It's not because he's slow. It's just because there is a process and he will eventually get there. He's just not there yet. Okay, that's a very, very powerful word. He is not there yet. Okay. Now, so having said all that, right, I talked about how play is a developmental process. So this is nature. Things happen in their own time, right? Our children walk and talk in their own time. We cannot rush it, right? My girls all started walking at, I think, around 13 months, just after they turn 1. But I know of friends whose children start walking at 9 months, and I know of children who started walking at 15, even 16 months. Right? Those are not late. Those children are not early, right? They are just all doing different things in their own time. So we need to recognize that, right? So that is the part of play. The nature, the developmental process is the nature part of play. Now, on the other spectrum, I want you guys to realize also that when it comes to open-ended play, it is also a learned skill, and that's where nurture comes in. Okay, now we are not going to talk about this tonight. We are going to unpack this a little bit more on day 3, right? When we talk about the role of the adult, because our role as an adult when it comes to nurturing that play is so important. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow as well, even in the play environment. Okay, so just remember that for today, that play is both, right? We need both. It's both a developmental process that takes into consideration the fact that children all develop and they're in their own time. You cannot rush it. On the other hand, right, children also need to learn the skills of how to engage in open-ended play. Okay, playing creatively. They need to be guided, they need to show, they need to see, they need to be shown that, wow, there are all these different possibilities. They need to have their eyes open to the possibilities around them. Okay, so we have come to the end of tonight's session. So let's recap, okay? Open-ended play. We have talked about how open-ended play is any play that is unstructured, happens when children follow their instincts, their ideas, their interests without an imposed outcome. Number 2, open-ended play provides the opportunities for our children to dice, right? Can anyone remember what dice represent? Come on, guys. Let me see. Let me see your comments. Come on, guys. D-I-C-E. Heidi, discover. Paige, discover. Awesome. Discover. And I, what's I? We want to help our children to discover, to imagine. Oh, Ria, A-star student. Vivian. Wow, Vivian, you have all 4 answers there. Create and explore. Awesome. Well done, guys. And number 3, open-ended play is learning. Remember, we talked about that 3 different tree images, right? That even though it doesn't seem like they're doing anything, so much is going on underneath the surface. And play on its own is learning. Even though I don't see my children, I'm not there, literally there, standing there watching to see what they're doing, right? I know without a shadow of a doubt that they are learning. And number 4, open-ended play is a developmental process. This is the nature part of play coming in. And lastly and finally, open-ended play is a learned skill. And this is where we need to learn how to nurture their ability to engage in open-ended play. And we will unpack that a little bit more in the next couple of days. Okay. And so your action task, okay, every single night, every single day after the lesson, well, I have created a workbook and I have given you 1 action task to focus on for each day, right? And so for tonight, your action task is to try and recognize, right? Use the prompt inside of the workbook to guide you. Recognize the stage of play that your child is at. If you cannot remember, you can just, go back to and watch the replay and pause at the slide with all the different stages and try and pinpoint where your child is at. What are your child interested in? And go a little bit deeper than just, oh, my child is interested in cars. Okay, remember like what I talked about earlier. And try and recognize your child's ability, right? Say, when it comes to block play, what exactly can your child do with blocks, right? Is it stacking? Be more specific, right? I want you guys to really pay attention and try and recognize, okay? And what are your child's strengths? What is your child good at? What is something that your child really loves to do and is good at? And the 5th one is, what are some skills that your child is still developing the ability to do well in? So this might be, it could be social emotional. It could be fine motor skills. Your child might not be great at threading yet, and this is a skill that he's trying to master, something that he is still developing his ability at. Okay? All right. And with that, we have come to the end of my teaching part of tonight's training. So we've got about 10 minutes to go. I'm going to keep each session as short as I can, strictly to 1 hour, because in previous events, I have been known to go up to 2 hours, which is really bad. But so I have 10 minutes. Let's go. I'm just going to scroll up and see if there is a couple of questions here that I might answer. Okay, so I'll just scroll up from the bottom. Okay, Fiona Chua. For really young children, okay, wait, I'm just going to turn off my screen first so you can see my big, beautiful face. Okay, hello. Okay, Fiona. For really young children, 1 to 2 years old, would it be quite tough to determine their interests? No, not at all. It really depends on us taking the time to actually observe our child. And sometimes children of that age, right, their interests might look like a lot of different random things, and that's okay, right? They need not have a very specific interest yet. That's completely fine as well. But just taking time to notice their interest, it's not so that you can, so that you can extend to try and make it into an activity. No, the reason why you want to just take time to notice is to build your own skill to observe, right? Because observation, the skill of learning how to observe is a skill as well. And so if you can start to observe when your child is a baby, right? Observing that your child, wow, my child is a baby, and I just noticed that my child has looked at this direction for a really, really long time. And I'm just wondering, why is my child looking at that direction? Is it the fan? Is it the light? Is it the shadows on the wall? Like, right? And so when you are observing a child, you are building for yourself, your own observation skills yet. It's not just solely for your child. We need to start from within, right? What we can actually, the skills that we can equip ourselves with first. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Facebook user, sorry, I don't know who has asked this question because you didn't give StreamYard permission for me to see your name. So Facebook user asked this question. Okay, I'm just going to show that question up here. If we, the adult, play the stuff, example, magnetic tiles, by building our own stuff, and the kids watch and model after and modify, would this be considered open-ended, or is this considered prescriptive? Oh, this is a great question. Now, we are actually going to dive into this in day 3, but because you asked, I'm going to answer your question, okay? No, it is not considered prescriptive. What you are doing is, as what you said, you are modeling for your child, and that is one of the very important roles that we can play for our children as well. Remember, I talked about how play is also a learned skill, and how children learn the skill by watching and learning. Right? Children learn the best by watching, not by telling, right? And so prescriptive would be telling your child, okay, this is a block and we can only make a castle with the blocks, right? But if you are building with the blocks, right? And you have chosen to build a castle, right? And your child is watching you and he builds a castle after that as well. It's not being prescriptive. You are modeling for your child, and your child has just observed and been inspired to do something. And honestly, guys, more often than not, once our children get inspired by what is possible, they actually take it in a completely different direction, right? I'll give you an example. A lot of times, right, my child sees me drawing, right? And this is something that I enjoy doing a lot with my kids, right? I sit down and I will just take out this huge, currently now in our house, because in my parents' house, we don't have a lot of material. So we just take what we can get. And what we have a lot in my parents' house is mahjong paper. And so that's what we have, right? And so my kids and I, we will just spread out this huge mahjong table on the mahjong table, and we will just draw, right? And for me, when I'm drawing, I just draw whatever, right? You know, sometimes I don't even draw like a thing that I'm thinking of. So I don't draw like a person. I don't draw like a butterfly. I don't draw like an end product. I just draw, you know, just draw to just express myself, to just express creativity, right? And my girls will look at it, and then they will be inspired to just do something completely different, completely not what I have intended when I started my own drawing, Okay, all right, let's keep going. Rebecca, okay, this is not one of the questions, but Rebecca Lewis, are we going to get access to these slides after the chat? Yes, there will be a replay recording as well for you guys. So, but this recording will only be available for you until next Tuesday, 29th of March. Okay, after which this group is going to be archived and the videos will be taken down. Okay, let me see if there's any more questions. Okay, guys, if you got any questions, just pop them in the chat. Okay, Li Ting Chai. Is coloring open-ended play? That's a really, really good question. Yes, yes, it is. It is one of those things like the board game thing as well, right? When I open up open-ended play earlier, right? Board games traditionally would not be considered as being able to have the potential for open-ended play. But if you allow your child, remember we talked about what open-ended play really means, right? Following the child, not focus on there's no right or wrong. So if you don't prescribe your child to, okay, you need to color within the lines, right? You need to use the red for this part of the picture and blue for this part of the picture, right? It is open-ended play, right? And you know what? If there is a coloring page, right, and you give a 12-month-old, right, to scribble over it on the paper, right, that child is not going to be able to color that picture perfectly. Does it matter? No. Is that open-ended play? Yes. Why? Because the child is not coloring it for the purpose of coloring that picture, whatever that picture is. That child is coloring and scribbling because that child is probably exploring what that medium of tool is for. That child is probably wondering, well, what is this color pencil for? What can I do with this color pencil? What can I do with this crayon? What can I do with this marker? That child is not thinking about trying to color that picture over there. That child is just trying to realize that, hey, I can actually make marks with this tool in my hand. And that child is experimenting. That child is creating marks. That child is discovering, making discoveries that, hey, this tool in my hand is a powerful tool to create marks, right? And I know as parents, we are very wary of our children making marks all over the place, right? And so, yes, in a nutshell, coloring can be, I wouldn't say coloring is open-ended play, but it can be. It depends on your intention. It depends on what your child actually does with it. Okay. All right. Will we get a copy of that worksheet that you just shared? Yes, so that is your workbook. I have already sent out the workbook as well, but if you cannot find it in your email, just go to the guide section inside of the Facebook group. It is in the start here section. I think it's the third post in the guide section. The link is there for you to download that that workbook. Okay. Facebook user again. Okay, let me answer this question. Thank you for your sharing. You're welcome. I love sharing. How many toys should we be placing out at one point for our children? My son is 14 months old. Okay, I don't want to give you a specific number because there is no specific number. The best number there will vary from parent to parent, from child to child, for family to family, for different households, right? Because some of us have got big houses, some of us have got small houses, some of us have 3 children, some of us have, like you have just 1 child, right? And so for me, how I started with was, I started with the furniture, the piece of furniture that I had, because we're going to be talking about that a little bit more tomorrow when we're talking about how to set up the play environment. But for us, when I had just that 1 child, and the very first environment I set up, right, was the IKEA shelf, which is the 4x4 IKEA shelf. And this was a shelf that we already had prior to having kids. And so I was just repurposing. I didn't buy any new shelves for my kids at that point of time, because we were only on 1 income by then. one income, and so we didn't need to, buy a whole bunch of different, IKEA stuff and different shelves and all that. We just made use of whatever we had. And so what we had at that point of time was we had this 4x4 IKEA shelf, a shelf. And we before kids, all the 16 squares were all like our stuff, right? And so what I did was to just remove the bottom two shelves, because that was where my 6-month-old, who was only sitting at that point of time, could reach, right? She wasn't able to reach the third and the fourth shelf anyway. And so I just removed everything on the bottom two shelves, and I just placed one item or one group of items in each of the cube. So that's how I just kind of decided that, I would have just 8 things or 8 groups of things if it was something like stacking cups or something that came with a set, right? So now, for instance, now in my parents' house, we only have 5 toys, and I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids who are playing, right? We don't count my baby because she's not playing, but I only have 5 toys for my 3 kids in my parents' house, because we don't have the space. And because we are only here for 3 months, so I didn't feel like I needed to just create a whole new big toy collection over here. And my children are absolutely fine with just these 5 toys. Okay, so have a think, have a play, right? Remember, there is no right or wrong answer. Try something out. You might try 3 toys. If you find that it's not enough, you can add more. You can start with 8 toys, and you feel like that's too much, then you can remove some. Constantly, it's always a trial and error. And something that I recently did with the members inside of TAIL, which is my parenting membership, right, is back in December, we did a refresh your play space challenge, right? And this is something that even that I encourage my members to do regularly, right? And so we did this back in December, because with December, with Christmas, right, just the whole toy overwhelming, lots of new toys coming in. And so we did that challenge at the end of the year, just to refresh our play space. So that was a refresh your play space challenge, where I gave them 5 different prompts over 5 days, right, to be able to refresh and rethink about how their play space is working or not working, and how they can actually make it better, right? And so I challenge you as well to actually do that with your play space from time to time. Your play space, when you create, right, we're going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, it's not something that you just do once and that's it. Oh, done. I do the hard work once and no, I'm finished, right? And it's also not to the other extreme where lots of play accounts talk about toy rotation, right? Where, wow, I have to rotate. I have so many toys, so I have to rotate my toys on a weekly basis or on a fortnightly basis. No, I don't rotate my toys, guys. I don't rotate my toys. But what I do is, I put up the amount of toys that I want. And when I notice that my child is not engaging with something anymore, I just swap it out. I just swap it out for another, right? Just to keep it going with their interest, right? If I feel like, oh no, the item has not been touched in so long, first I might try and present it in a different way, because the presentation of it matters as well. We're going to talk about that again tomorrow as well in the play environment. But if it is, if it's not working, right, then it is time to think about how you can actually tweak things, change things, and it might not need to be a massive play space overhaul. No, even just tiny tweaks here and there will make a difference as well. And so this is something that I would encourage you to do all the time as well. Not to tweak your play space, but to constantly have an eye on your play space to see how well it is used, how well it is loved by your child. And this comes back again to knowing your child and actually developing the skill of observing as well, so that you can actually recognize when something is not loved anymore, or your child has moved on, and yeah, it's time to swap something new. Okay, all right. Let me see. Thanks, guys, for all jumping in to answer each other's questions when I cannot, there's just so much going on. I'm so excited that you guys are just jumping in to help each other. I love the whole community vibe going on here. So thank you. I really appreciate it, because I'm just one person. I cannot see every single comment that is happening out. So thank you, Paul and Karen, for answering a few questions for me. Okay. Clarissa, my boy loves cars. All right, let's go back to the cars thing again. If my child is not able to talk well yet, how to discover what makes him interested in cars? Good question. We observe. We observe, and not just observing. This comes back to your role as well, right? When you are playing with your child, what can you do in that play as well, right? And so it's all an experimentation as well. It's all trial and error as well. I cannot tell you what your child is interested in, and you will not know as well until you trial, until you try, right? You give your child a few things, right? Like I remember there was once, right, that this child in the preschool that I was teaching years ago, right? He was so into football or soccer. Right? One of the other. Okay, it's all the same to me, right? But I know with boys who really love football and soccer, it's not the same, right? But there was this boy who was so madly in love with the game, right? And the thing is, you know, as early childhood educators, right, when our job, right, is to actually develop our skills in observation, learn to observe kids. We take notes on what we notice children enjoying, and then we try and set up different activities to encourage them to, you know, engage in their interest a little bit more. And so a couple of the early childhood educators, you know, started setting up like, you know, ball games outside in the yard and all that. And the boy didn't gravitate to those activities, or like he loves the whole soccer and the whole game, right? And so the educators thought that, oh, you know, if I were to just put out the ball game outside, you know, and maybe the boy would enjoy and playing a game of footy or soccer with his friends. But no, it was out for like, I think 2 weeks or something. That boy didn't touch it at all. And later on, what we realized was because in Australia preschools, right, the children get to bring in things from home and all and share with their friends. And he brought this little book, right, where he had all these different collector cards, right, of all the different players that he loves and all that, right. And we realized that he was fascinated with actually collecting all these cards, right, with the game. Like he really wanted to know the names of the players. He wanted to know how many goals they have scored in their whole life, right? And see who has scored like the most goals in their whole life, and which country do they represent, and all that, right? And he started to, you know, do lots of writing in the writing center in our preschool on, you know, making his own player cards as well. And can you imagine? That's why I say it's so important to actually drill down a little bit more about what exactly are children interested in. Because on the surface, it just looks like, oh, this child is just interested in football, in soccer. And so, you know what? I will just keep buying my child balls, right? He loves the game, so I'll just keep buying him balls and balls and balls. But your child might not actually be interested in the playing of the game, but he's interested in all the other different things, the other elements that contribute to the game itself, right? And that's what I mean about really going deeper and not just looking at things on the surface. And that's what I mean about how open-ended play is really such a long game, right? We don't think about setting up activities just to, you know, let our child be engaged in for 1 more hour, 1 more play session, 1 more day. No, we want to help them to, you know, develop their interest, right? Be able to, you know, follow up on their interest, be able to do things like what I talked about earlier about that boy being able to, you know, create his own player cards, you know, writing down, you know, players' names, you know, learning things like countries, right? And the flags as well, the jersey numbers. I know he was so fascinated with, and he could remember all the different, his favorite players' jersey numbers and all as well. And that's the beauty of authentic learning. And that's why I'm so passionate about authentic learning. And this is is all attributed to play, to open-ended play. Okay, guys, I said I wouldn't go over, but I have already gone over. So I'm just going to take one last question. Okay, let me just go and see who is the lucky last question that I am going to answer. Okay, let's do this question. I don't want to limit my child's creativity, but I also want to set boundaries. Example, you cannot play with tissues from the tissue box. Any tips for how to do this without killing their joy? Oh, this is a question that is amazing. Like I just love this question so much. So guys, you know, asking questions is so valuable because it really helps us to learn and helps us to unpack issues, and yes, so valuable. So thank you, Ting, for asking this question, right? Boundaries is something that is very, 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 very important. I know the biggest thing for parents when it comes to open-ended play is the mess. Like, oh my goodness, my kids are just, throwing toys, a million things everywhere, right? It is so important to set boundaries. And then the thing about setting boundaries is you need to be consistent about following through on those boundaries. Okay. Recently, I was talking to one of my really, really good friends, and she was actually asking me about for my opinion about this play session that she did with her kids, right? And so she was doing this painting session with her kids, and then she told me that, oh, Jules, I was very excited. My kids asked to paint, and they don't often ask to paint, so we were excited. We took out all the paints, right? And then they started, just painting everything a big messy blue. Again, right? No issues with that, because again, we are not focused on the end product. It is part of the process, and it is completely fine. I know there's so much to dive about this as well, again, because with paint and all, it comes on with wastage and all that stuff. But let's just not talk about that for today, right? But when it comes to the painting, right? My friend was telling me that first her child was just painting everything a bit blue, and then she started painting her body, right? Her body. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, right? My kids paint their bodies all the time as well. And then the question I asked her was, okay, do you have any boundaries, right, when it comes to painting? She was like, no, yeah, I think it's a good idea. I need to have boundaries. I was like, okay, never mind, that's fine. So from now on, let's do boundaries. But okay, tell me more. So have she done body painting before? And my friend said, yes. And so I asked her, when has she done body painting? And then my friend said, oh, when she is outside of the house, I allow my child to paint their bodies outside because they can just hose them down outside. But in the house, I don't want her to do it as well. But so can you see the problem here? The problem here is there are boundaries, but the boundaries are not explicitly stated. And also the boundaries are different, right? It is okay for outside, but it is not okay for inside. But this is not communicated to your child. We think that it's obvious, right? Oh, outside it's obvious that our children can get more messy outside than inside. But our children cannot read between the lines. Okay, they cannot read between the lines to know which is more acceptable than another, right? And so we need to be very, very clear and straightforward with our boundaries. Like, okay, you can paint your bodies only if we're outside, or we don't paint our bodies at all. Okay, we don't paint with our bodies at all. What are the boundaries like? Okay, toys only on in the play area, right? We don't bring our toys to the bedroom. Now, having said that, so consistency is key as well, because our children need lots and lots of times before they can remember. Remember I said it's a long game, right? It's not something that you set your boundaries and your child just is able to just do it overnight, right? It is not possible. Even with my girls, who I think play amazingly well, and they are very familiar with the boundaries I set, there are still times where they forget, and I have to remind them, and it's okay, because that is all part of that learning process as well. Okay, and so set those boundaries. If you don't want your child to play with tissues, tell your child, no, we don't play with tissues. Tissues are for whatever, right? And then maybe think about something. So just to answer your question, because I actually went through this so many times with each of my kids, right? There's just something about tissue that kids love, and wipes as well, right? With wipes. And so actually what I did was to take an empty tissue box and stuff all those silks that I showed you earlier before, so that my girls could just enjoy that whole process of pulling things out, right? And what else did I do? I took a lot of old sheets, old fabrics that I have, and I cut them into tissue squares as well, and I just stuff them in those tissue boxes as well, and just let my girls go crazy with that pulling. Okay, so there are ways that you can actually allow your kids to fulfill a need that they have, a play need that they have, while still maintaining your boundaries. Okay, and that is not stifling their creativity at all. All right. I am very thirsty. I have talked for so long, but guys, Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. It's been such a great first night. We've got so much more in store for you over the next couple of nights. Remember, there is your homework that I have given you to do as well in the workbook. A few of you have already mentioned where you can find the workbook. Check your email, it's in there. Okay, but I've just got a couple of announcements for you guys as well, okay, that my husband kindly wrote for me. So announcement number one, okay, I know a couple of you have invited your friends, right, and into the Facebook group as well. So you invited them. Please, instead of inviting them to the Facebook group, send them the link to the sign up page. So that they can sign up, so that we get that email, and so we can send all communication as well, so that they don't miss out on anything. So, you know, they will get the notebooks, they will get the replays link, right? So every day's replay will be sent out the next morning. So tomorrow morning, the replay will be sent out in your email inbox as well. All right. So if you've come in halfway and you have missed the first part of the sharing, right? Don't worry. There will be a replay coming into your email inbox tomorrow morning, the next morning, okay? And so announcement number two is a hangout session, right? So there will be a hangout session for those who join us inside of TAIL to this whole coaching week, right? So actually, TAIL is currently not open yet to the public, but I have secretly opened up an early bird opening for those of you who want to join TAIL, right? So every single morning this week, there is a hangout session with me. It's a very casual one. It's not going to be teaching, but a little bit more like a tutorial. So imagine tonight as the lecture. Tomorrow is all the morning sessions will be like a tutorial where we'll just unpack a little bit more about what I talked about today. So, you know, if you've got a question, very specific question where, you know, you want to give me your details about what your child is interested in, we can brainstorm together about your child's interests, abilities, and all that, right? We'll unpack a little bit more. So it's going to be a very casual, come ask me anything, come hang out with me session. It's going to be an hour from 10 to 11. So it's for those who join TAIL during coaching week only. So this is a special bonus for all of you who join during this week, right? Because the public will not have this option, right? So if you want to join me and catch up with me more intimately, this is going to be a very, very small group, I believe. So it's going to be really fun. Cannot wait to see you. So I know there's a couple of you who have already joined us. And so I'll see you tomorrow, 10 a.m., right? The email with the Zoom link, we're going to catch up on Zoom, will be sent out into your email inbox as well, okay? Okay, announcement number three, after this group is archived, don't worry. I know a lot of you are worried about all these replays and videos and all that as well. The videos will be made available, like I mentioned, the next morning. But please make time to watch them this week because you do not have lifetime access to these videos, right? These videos will be taken down next Tuesday, 29th of March. And then this Facebook group will be archived, right? So you will not have access to the videos anymore after next Tuesday. So please make the most of this week. Take the time to watch the videos and, you know, ask questions inside of the Facebook group. I want to make myself available to you this week to answer as many questions as I can, to support as many of you as I can. Okay, and so finally, right, tomorrow, join me again at 10 o'clock. Remember to give StreamYard access for me to see your name so that when, you know, someone make a comment, it's not just Facebook user, right? So for instance, this one, thank you for your sharing, Jules. I think I'm secretly joining this event so that I can play better myself to model this to my children. Love, love, love that. I don't know who this Facebook user is, but I thank you for your comment. I really, really appreciate it. I really appreciate you here learning, because I truly believe that the best way that we can help our children is when we invest in learning ourselves. Because like I mentioned earlier, we don't know what we don't know, right? The first step to helping our children is to equip ourselves with knowledge, right? Because the more we know, the more we can help our children. So you guys have already made that first step. So well done, guys, and good job. All right, so that's all for tonight. I will see you all tomorrow night for day 2 session, which is going to be about the play environment. And for those of you who will be joining me for the hangout session, morning tea with Jules, it's going to be at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I will be sending out the Zoom link really soon. All right, good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.